Welcome to the 6th Annual National Heads Up Poker Championship presented by GoDaddy.com. Well, folks, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, a titanic best-of-3 final round to settle once and for all who will be the 2010 National Heads Up Poker Champion. Now it's man against woman, old friend against old friend, Erik Seidel versus Annie Duke. Erik, I know you guys have known each other for a long time. You sat across a lot of tables from each other, coffee tables, dinner tables. Now at the TV poker final table, how are you going to beat her? Nothing like putting it on you.
I don't know how I'm going to beat her. I'm going to try my best to do it, but I'm just thrilled that we're heads up, and if she wins, I'll be happy to. So.
All right. I know you guys have known each other a long time. Any funny stories about Erik when you guys were teenagers?
Well, I mean, he's a little bit older than me, but I knew him in my late teens. You know, the thing is that what people need to realize about Erik is that he's actually one of the funniest people I know. So what I'm going to recommend to people is they look him up on Twitter and follow Erik_Seidel so that they can find out what we all know about Erik, that he should actually have gone into stand-up comedy.
Funny. Well, maybe we'll hear some of your lines. All right, you guys, let's get the cards in the air. Good luck.
Field of 64 now down to 2. Erik Seidel and Annie Duke facing off in a best-of-3 championship final for the 2010 National Heads Up Poker Crown.
Not that aggressive.
This is so weird. No, seriously, because I'm like, who am I rooting for? Wait, I'm rooting for myself. Wait, yes, that's right. I just think it's so funny that we talked after... there's Andy. We talked after, the quarters, and we were like, wouldn't that be amazing? Like, we could actually meet in the finals, right? That was incredible.
It was incredible.
Blinds at 3,000 and 6,000. Each player starts with 640,000 in chips. King deuce for Seidel. Okay. He limps in.
Something tells me we won't be getting too much stand-up comedy, no matter how comfortable the two of these players are with one another. There is $500,000 on the line.
Erik pairs his king. After Annie checks, he bets 6,000. And Annie folds.
First pot to Seidel.
At the start of this tournament, it was fashionable to pick the players who had performed well in years past. For example, Huckleberry Seed, Chris Ferguson, or Ted Forrest. But as you well know, Ali, poker doesn't follow a formula, does it? That's why Annie Duke and Erik Seidel are here, both great players. But coming into this year's tournament, they were 1 in 10 lifetime at Heads Up. So it's now time for you to bust out the crystal ball. How are you going to handicap this final?
I'd be a lot better poker player if I had a crystal ball, Craig. Poker's a long-term game, so we can't judge Erik and Annie off just a few heads-up matches from years past in this event. Erik has beaten 4 main event champs to get to this point, and Annie will be the first to tell you that she comes into this best-of-3 as an underdog. And when you're an underdog, you have to be willing to gamble early.
Bottom line, what makes Erik so tough?
Annie's played some tough opponents to this point, but Erik's the kind of guy that's got a game plan for every situation. He knows Annie, he knows her game, and he's not going to let her stay in her comfort zone. If we see more post-flop action, that's going to favor Seidel, but I still like my pick from the semis. Annie Duke is this year's champ in 3.
Annie with King 10. She raises to 14,000. Seidel with Ace 6. Will call. Annie pairs her 10.
Seidel gonna lead out here. We've seen a lot of this from him in this event. Likes to take position away from his opponent by doing this. Annie, of course, not going anywhere with the 10.
Duke turns 2 pair. Seidel picks up a gut shot.
Annie definitely not going anywhere now.
Erik bets 40,000.
Not giving up on his line here. If Annie hadn't spiked a king in this situation, a 10 is a tougher hand to call with at this point.
She raises to 120,000.
Really no chance Erik's calling.
Seems like a very good hand. All right.
He folds.
Good start for Duke.
I apologize. I think, by the way, your road here, you had a really freaking tough road here, didn't you?
Played a lot of good players along the way.
I mean, you started out the top.
There isn't any easy road, I guess. Most everybody plays great.
9-7 suited for Seidel.
That's the hand he used to finish Scotty off in the semis.
He limps in. Pocket jacks for Annie.
It was 9-7 offsuit that time. A little better here.
She raises to 21,000.
Speaking of better,
Eric calls.
getting a little less than 2-1 on that call, but there's plenty of play. Each player with over 100 big blinds to start, and you don't want to make the habit of limp folding.
Trey 8 king. Annie's jack still best. She bets 24,000.
No draws on this board.
Eric raises to 55,000.
Playing poker now, he's trying to bully what might be a big ace. Just a random continuation bet that hasn't connected with the board.
Annie re-raises to 174,000.
Now we're really playing poker. And he's basically representing ace, king, or better.
Eric calls.
No way. Eric is calling here just floating with 9 high, hoping for a chance to take this pot away.
He picks up an open-ended straight draw. Annie checks.
Oh, she's going to shut it down, and I don't blame her. After Eric makes that call, you got to give him credit for a king. He doesn't have a draw on that board.
He bets 160,000.
Wow. This is poker on a high level, Craig.
550,000 in the pot. She folds. Seidel steals a huge one from Annie.
This is why I'm in the booth and not at that table. Really impressive stuff.
Before the championship match began, we overheard Seidel and Annie Duke discussing their previous struggles in this event.
Who would have guessed these two fish cakes in the final? We both had terrible records. And by the way, you can only tie me.
I just want better than a 50% record.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
I don't think I'm there. I think I might be at 50%.
A remarkable turnaround for both players. 1-10 combined coming into 2010. Now a collective 10-0 this year as they face off in the best-of-3 final.
He's not allowed to drink.
What?
He's not allowed to drink.
Oh, didn't he have a beer at the table?
It was non-alcoholic.
Oh, gotcha.
Lines now 5 and 10,000.
I didn't realize
4 deuce suited for Seidel. He limps in. 6-4 suited for Annie. She checks. Annie pairs her 6. Eric pairs his deuce.
Check.
Looks like they're going to keep this pot a little smaller than the last one.
Trip 6s for Annie. Eric drawing dead, but he bets 10,000.
After Annie checks to him.
Annie raises to 25,000.
She wanted Eric to bet after she checked and give her an opportunity to do exactly what she's doing here. Eric making the call. Obviously not giving Annie credit there for having a 9 or a 6. And now he's filled up with the bottom full house. That's going to cause a dilemma.
Annie bets 50,000.
That would be pretty amazing.
Eric calls and sees that Annie has 6s full.
Never a good feeling when you call and your opponent shows you the one hand that you're hoping you don't see.
It began with 64 of the world's premier players. 62 fell, and the heads-up field now focuses in on 2 names, Eric Seidel and Annie Duke for the 2010 National Heads-Up Poker title.
Is the National Heads-Up Poker Champion. Paul Wasika is the National Heads-Up Champion. Chris Ferguson is the 2008 Heads-Up Champ.
And Hutch Seed is the 2009 champion. One of these two is going to have the next championship moment, either Annie Duke or Eric Seidel.
And then he bluffed me out of a big pot, too.
I think you bluffed me out of a big pot, though. So So I think we're even. But I don't even know what pot I bluffed you out of. I haven't bluffed yet. I mean, except when you caught me the one time. That's the only time I bluff is when you catch me.
GoDaddy.com Pocket Cam gives us an early look of Eric's Jack-6 suited. 5-4 for Annie, and she gives Eric the walk.
That hasn't been something we've seen a lot of from Annie so far in this tourney.
How about a girl in the finals 2 years in a row? That's pretty strong.
That's a good streak. Yeah, how many are there? There are only a few in the field.
Yeah. I think it was 7 this year, maybe.
They're competing for the heads-up title right now, but their history spans virtually their entire lives.
I've known Annie for such a long time. Her brother, Howard, is one of my very closest friends.
I've known Eric since I was really young, like teens.
The first time I saw Annie, she didn't even know how to play. She was just kind of hopping along and, you know, obviously very smart.
To see him do really well, like, I'm just so happy for him.
She's a terrific player. She's very much underrated by a lot of people. She plays these tournaments really well.
People need to see what a great player this guy is. And he's what every poker player should aspire to be. He's the example that I've always looked to, that I try to model myself on as much as I can.
I get the feeling the title will be genuinely bittersweet for whoever wins, considering how much respect they have for one another. They really are good friends.
I can't freaking believe that we're here playing heads up for the... I'm just like... Boy, we made up for lost time, didn't we?
It's true.
It's so crazy.
I have to watch you bluff me every year.
What?
That's the worst part. I'm never going to be able to watch this on TV.
I don't think I'll watch because I don't want to see how bad I play.
Lines are now at 10 and 20,000.
Annie's not going to enjoy having seen those pocket jacks hit the muck. That's for sure.
Ace-10 for Eric. He limps in. 6-5 for Annie. She checks.
I gotta say, Erik Seidel has mixed it up better than anyone else in this tournament. Limping with big hands, raising with garbage, out of position, in position, just really never know where he's at.
After both players check the flop, Annie bets sixes with an open-ended straight draw. Eric with the nut flush draw. He calls. Annie makes her straight.
4 to a straight and 3 to a flush out there.
She bets 55,000.
And he bets 55,000 on the river.
Eric calls. Annie shows him the bad news.
I'm a little surprised to see Eric call with tie here, but I do get it. Annie probably wouldn't have bet one pair, so she either had a big hand or air.
All he can do is nod and appreciate the play from his opponent.
Very difficult cow.